Hello and welcome to the old Fliers. Today's story is about a remarkable young woman who made aviation history. She not only flew Ireland's first powered biplane, but was also the first woman in the world to design, build and fly an aeroplane. Her American counterpart, Amelia Earhart, was only 12 years old at that time. Lillian Bland was born on the 28th of September 1878 near Maidstone in Kent, England. Her Irish heritage dates back to 1670 and her family was considered Anglo-Irish gentry. Following the death of her mother in 1910, Bland, then aged 28, and her father moved to the family home, Tobercoran House, in Carmony, north of Belfast. Lillian became interested in photography and would often wander over Carmony Hill, where she would watch and photograph the birds soaring overhead. She was an unconventional young woman for the time, engaging in activities that were not considered appropriate for a young lady in the Edwardian period. Today we would call that being a tomboy. She dressed in breeches, smoked cigarettes and worked on motorcar engines. She rode astride horses and took part in hunting, fishing and shooting activities at which she was very skilled. By 1908, Lillian had established herself as a sports journalist and press photographer for London newspapers. During the summer of that year, while staying with friends in Scotland, Lillian photographed the seagulls effortlessly soaring overhead. Her uncle Robert sent her a postcard of Louis Barrault's monoplane with its dimensions, knowing of her interest. Lillian attended the first official aviation meeting in the UK, held in Blackpool in 1909, where she took careful detailed notes of the measurements and dimensions of the aircraft on display. She also observed flying demonstrations, noting that they keep their heads to the wind and turn a corner by drifting around tail first, whatever that means. She read all the information she could in various books and magazines, especially Flight magazine, and certainly knew about the Wright brothers' experiments. At that point, no one in Ireland had yet made a powered flight. The first would be Harry Ferguson at Hillborough on the 31st of December 1909. Today, Ferguson is remembered as a pioneer of farm tractor innovation. A year earlier, in June 1908, Elliott Verdon Roe had made the first powered flight in the UK. In 1910, Bland successfully built a flyable model biplane with a wing span of 6 feet, which he flew successfully as a kite. This encouraged her to start work on her full-size glider. Her late uncle, General William James Smythe, provided a house with a well-equipped workshop in which she could do so. She used bamboo, spruce, almond ash, and remembering the seagulls in Scotland, she steamed the ash to bend it into shape, emulating the slight curvature at the tip of their wings. Spruce was used for the ribs and stanchions, whilst unbleached calico was soaked in a mixture of gelatin and formalin to make it waterproof. The skids were also made of ash and the outriggers of bamboo. The engine bed was made from American elm and was fastened by wires attached to the upper and lower wings to keep it secure. The fuel tank was housed in the chassis and the canvas pilot seat was enclosed and secured by 4 straps to prevent the pilot from falling out. At that time, restraints to hold the pilot were uncommon. The controls were a bicycle handlebar. The finished glider had a wingspan of 20 feet and 7 inches and weighed 200 pounds, 91 kilos. Due to the doubts that were expressed to her about its flying capability, Lillian, with deliberate irony, named it Mayfly. The Mayfly had similar wings to Blériot's design, but it could get off the ground by itself. Mayfly had its trial flight on the slopes of Carmony Hill, where Lillian had enlisted the help of 4 6-foot-tall burly members of the Royal Irish Constabulary and a young lad called Joe Blaine. All 5 hung on to the mayfly as the wind took it up into the air. The 4 constables promptly let go, leaving Joe to hang on and bring the glider back down to the ground. Lillian concluded that if mayfly could carry the weight of 5 men, it could quite easily manage the weight of an engine. Lillian ordered a 2-stroke air-cooled engine from the newly founded AV Row Aircraft Company in Manchester for the sum of £100. That's about £15,000 in today's money. After a delay in the order, Lillian, who was unable to wait any longer, travelled by ferry to England and returned to Ireland on the boat train with a new 20 horsepower engine and adjustable pitch propeller. She wrote in a letter to Flight magazine that it fitted very neatly into a railway carriage. The horizontally opposed 2-cylinder engine achieved 20 horsepower at 1000 RPM. Bland was eager to test the engine-powered aircraft before its petrol tank was ready, so she improvised. An empty whiskey bottle was used instead, with Bland's deaf aunt's ear trumpet as the engine hose. She found a park at Randalstown from which to fly. The only drawback was that the park had a resident bull, but undeterred, Lillian wrote, "If it gets annoyed and charges, I shall have every inducement to fly." As the engine was housed behind the pilot, Mayfly was started by Joe Blaine, who stood between the tail booms to swing the propeller. At first the flight wasn't very smooth, with the plane making faltering hops at a short distance, but after several attempts it flew to an altitude of 30 feet and stayed in the air for a quarter of a mile. Lillian was delighted and in disbelief kept checking the wheel tracks on the wet grass to confirm that she had taken off. "I have flown," she wrote in a letter to Flight magazine. This made Bland the first woman to fly an aircraft in Ireland, and the Mayfly became the first powered biplane there as well. Lillian continued experimenting with further flights. She began to plan an improved version and offered biplanes for sale at £250 apiece without an engine, and gliders for £80 to fund further development. The Mayfly was able to stably glide over 90 yards and rise 30 feet, even in gusty winds, according to Bland's words. The aircraft was, however, not capable of much more and would not cope with a larger engine. Finally, Bland gave the Mayfly airframe to a boys' gliding club and sold the engine. Her father, who had become worried about her precarious exploits, brought her a Model T Ford motorcar. She taught herself to drive and became Ford's first agent in Northern Ireland. In October 1911, Lillian married her cousin Charles Loftus Bland and emigrated to Canada. She returned to Kent in 1935, where she lived with her brother Captain Robert Bland until the 1950s, when she retired to Cornwall. She died at the age of 92 on the 11th of May 1971 and is buried in the churchyard in Seanan near Land's End. Bland was commemorated by an Ulster History Circle blue plaque at the family home in Carmody, County Antrim, and Mayfly was presented to the Dublin Club. Glengormley Park in Newtown Abbey was renamed Lillian Bland Community Park, and a stainless steel sculpture of the Mayfly was unveiled. Zara Rutherford, the youngest woman to fly solo around the world at age 19 in 2022, credited Lillian Bland as one of her sources of inspiration. Poet Sinead Morrissey recounts one of Bland's flights in her poem, The Mayfly. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to promote new content.